Ever since I got introduced to and captivated by the horror scene as a child, I've always been fascinated by the use of the unknown and the things that can't be fully explained. The type of things that keep you awake at night. Not scared necessarily, but instead distressed and wondering. Thanks to that attraction, cosmic horror has always been my favorite form of the storytelling medium. What is cosmic horror, though? It's a subgenre of horror that utilizes the use of the unknowable and the incomprehensible, and does not tend to focus on the typical use of gore and shock value like the other subgenres. It notably contains the themes of ancient, uncaring, and seemingly near omnipotent beings or forces that directly challenge the character's sense of reality, frequently resulting in a given character experiencing an existential crisis that causes them to develop psychological decay or breakdown. But because of the genre's necessary fixation with not giving a full explanation due to remaining incomprehensible, it seems as a whole to consistently either be misrepresented, undervalued, or done just plain wrong. That's why, in this video, we're going to be covering the instances of media where I think it has been portrayed correctly, and why. So join me now as we explore together cosmic horror done right. It's important for the purposes of this discourse that we separate cosmic horror into its different features and cover them separately. After some consideration, I've concluded that the subgenre can be broken down into three types. Now, that's not to say that these types cannot be overlapped or even be used all at once. However, I do believe these facets to be what makes cosmic horror cosmic horror. The first being ancient. This comprises of the use of something usually predating the human era, such as an ancient civilization whose ways and dark history have been forgotten by time. The second being extraterrestrial, containing themes such as a hyper-advanced race of aliens that have the grasp of the very fabric of reality and can exert their will over it. The third being causal force. This is probably the most underutilized out of the three. It explicitly focuses on the uncaring aspect of the subgenre, about something that exists to carry out a given objective, and will twist and torment humanity in whatever way it seems fit to accomplish this goal. Just as a side note, there will be spoilers for the stories I list ahead, so if you don't want any of these to be ruined for you, you can skip to the next chapter of the video. Just to clarify, these will not be comprehensive coverings for these pieces of media. I will be giving a synopsis of each one and then giving a brief dialogue after on what I think they did right. I still highly recommend that you check out all of the entries in the list today on your own time. Now, with those explanations out of the way, let's get into the meat of it. Ancient gods and humanity's lost past. By far the most popular type of cosmic horror, the ancient subtype is a fantastical depiction, most popularized and pioneered by the works of the author H.P. Lovecraft, with notable entries such as the Dunwich Horror, At the Mountains of Madness, and The Color Out of Space. Throughout the years, this subtype has changed to cover many different ideas, bringing us to my first example. Popular horror manga artist Junji Ito has made noteworthy series revolving around cosmic horror, his most prominent one being a manga named Uzumaki. Starting as a series released in 1998 and later being published in an omnibus edition, Uzumaki follows a teenager named Kiri and her friend Shuichi in a rural Japanese town on the coast, as it begins to be enveloped by numerous supernatural events. The citizens become increasingly paranoid and obsessed with spirals. The obsession eventually manifests into physical incidents that cruelly twist the small town and its inhabitants in unnatural ways, resulting in the death and mutilation of many, including Shuichi's own parents, leading our two characters to pursue the cause of this curse ever more diligently. As the curse ramps up in power, a series of natural disasters rack the town. Typhoons destroy the town's infrastructure, the only remaining buildings being ancient houses that the residents have no choice but to occupy. Due to the increasingly terrible condition of the coastal town, our characters attempt to escape the area, but to no avail, returning to find that several years had passed in the interim of their absence. Also realizing the citizens have become mutated due to excessive overcrowding, and had expanded the ancient buildings until they formed a giant spiral maze. Following the maze to its center in an attempt to find Kiri's parents, they stumble upon a massive pit. After falling into the pit and being separated from Shuichi, she finds her parents and a collection of the other citizens petrified, their fossilized remains facing an ancient spiral city long forgotten by time. Realizing this is most likely the source of the entire curse, Shuichi begs Kiri to leave as he is in no shape to make it out of the abomination they found themselves in. Kiri denies this idea, determined to stay with him. Accepting the finality of the curse, the two embrace, their bodies grotesquely twisting together. They watch as a stone tower rises to the surface, twisting time as it rises. The spiral curse is eternal, and the events will repeat when a new town is built on the ruins of the old. The manga never fully explains what was at the root of it all, what caused the curse in the first place, and what could be done to end it even if nothing at all. In the end, everything was consumed and twisted to the whims of this unexplained ancient phenomena. A kind of totality was reached, innately unstoppable and unable to be slowed. The true terror of uzumaki comes from the inability to control the situation and even your own destiny. Being trapped in an uncanny vivarium of sorts, fated to be twisted and contorted in both mind and body, according to some long, unattended ritual of a bygone civilization. You yourself doomed to be forgotten with it as well. The next entry we're going to discuss takes on a more esoteric approach in its story, more rooted in the subgenre's typical use of cults, pledged in a full devotion to something beyond their feeble understanding. The Empty Man is a horror movie directed by David Pryor that came out in 2020 during the initial scare of the COVID pandemic. Due to this, it did not get the full attention it deserved. The story follows a former police detective named James Lasombra. During his grieving of the loss of his wife and son in a car accident, he is alerted to the fact that his neighbor's daughter Amanda has run away without warning. He offers his time and experience to help find her. Upon his investigation of Amanda's room, he finds a message written in blood that says, "The empty man made me do it." He also takes notice of a pamphlet for a group called the Pontifex Institute. With this newfound information, he tries to make contact with Amanda's friend group to find out what is going on. Consulting her friend Devara, he is informed that the group had jokingly performed a ritual of urban legend that would apparently summon the Empty Man. Arriving later to investigate, he finds the rest of Amanda's friends lifeless underneath the bridge they had conducted the ritual at. The police, satisfied with this, rule Amanda's disappearance as a suicide. Perplexed by this find, however, James does his own research on the Pontifex Institute. He finds they are a cult of some form, with ideas derived from the Buddhist belief of tulpas, also known as thought forms. After attending one of their open meetings, he has a conversation with the cult leader, who references the Empty Man and their goal to manifest it, giving an ambiguous explanation as to what it actually is.
But towards the end, you did say...
The Empty Man.
What does it mean?
The Empty Man is a meditation, focal point for the targeted manifestation of hidden energies.
Right, and already you're starting to lose me.
Just as man feeds and is fed by the biosphere, the atmosphere, so it is our thoughts feed and are fed by the noosphere, the sum of all conscious thought, the veil between form and flesh and the means by which it can be pierced, and the two allowed to commingle. For example, take Nietzsche's old line, if you stare into an abyss, it also stares into you, right? Well, that has been rendered meaningless through repetition. If profound meaning can be robbed of something by so simple a task as repetition, Which is more fundamental? Which is more true? Your name or the gibberish? That is the empty man.
Left confused by this, James is gifted a lead on Amanda's whereabouts by one of the attendees. He tells James of the scale of the obsession with the empty man and makes him aware of a camp that the institution uses to reach their next level of ascension. Upon reaching the camp, James proceeds to snoop around some of the cabins for answers. He finds some file cabinets containing documents with information on people in the cult, including Amanda, after which he stumbles upon a folder with his name on it. Puzzled upon finding it to be empty, he continues on. Outside, he finds a group making ritualistic chants around a bonfire. Turning to leave, he accidentally alerts them to his presence. He rushes to his car as the group pursues him, narrowly making it out of the camp. He brings the evidence he gathered to the police, to which he gets discredited and turned away. Aggravated, he once again takes matters into his own hands. He trails the cultists who had informed him of the camp's location, ending up at a hospital where he follows to a room with a man in a coma. James then apprehends him after they leave the hospital and frantically demands an explanation. The cultist goes on to say the man in the hospital is a sort of antenna, meant to transmit from the thought space of humanity, a space that contains ancient and sinister beings bent on destruction and suffering. He explains that this culmination requires an empty man in order to manifest in physical form. With the gravity of the situation now in his mind, James heads back to the Institute. Digging through their files, he once again finds a file with his name, but this time it's full of newspaper clippings and documents about his life. He then returns to the hospital to inquire about the strange man, only to find out from a nurse that he's been in the care of several hospitals over the previous decades, has no history, and does not have a name. An empty man, if you will. The nurse then informs him that the man has a visitor, and James goes in to see who it is. Finding it to be Amanda, he proceeds to call her mother, only to be met by her claiming she has no idea who he is. Extremely unsettled, James questions Amanda further. She tells James that this man, this carrier, is dying. The cult, desperate to find a new empty man before this one died, decided to create a new one. Horrifyingly, she informs James that he was their new creation, brought forth due to their collective creation of a thought form. He was never real. His life was simply a sadistic production meant to fill this void. As this existential crisis sets in, he finds himself afflicted by the visions of the entity he is now meant to carry. Making a futile attempt to escape his new terrifying reality, he is caught by the entity and struggles as it merges with him. All points from his life now converging into one, he makes his way back to his bedroom, only to find that the previous empty man is now there. He then unloads his gun into him, and the scene changes back to the hospital, the staff now converging around him. They fall to their knees, realizing the merging is now complete, and a new horrid reality is now upon the world. As the film fades to black, we are left wondering what this entity really was and what it's capable of. In the scene where James was interrogating the cultist, they explained that the noosphere is the sum of all consciousness, not just human. It also contains furious ancient minds. Now, to whether the noosphere is something like a prison or a gate to another world is up to the viewer's interpretation. What we do know for sure, though, is that the Pontifex Institute did not fully understand what they were trying to conjure. Every explanation being enigmatic, with the very meaning being veiled from even their eyes. The movie tastefully gives us just enough to comprehend the plot, but stops from feeding us too much information about the entity, nailing the subgenre's use of ancient cryptic beings. If you ever have a free 2 hours in your day, I highly recommend you sit down and enjoy The Empty Man. And with that, we move on to the next chapter of our video. Our final entry sees our instrument of horror coming from beyond the stars. Though not directly under the horror genre, I believe this work contains the necessary themes of cosmic horror. All Tomorrows, a billion-year chronicle of the species and mixed fortunes of man, is a book written back in 2006 by C. M. Kozman, never to be physically published in English. According to the author, it's had a life of its own as a PDF file floating around the backwaters of the internet like a ghost ship. The book, written in a style of a historical account, is set in an alternate future, revolving around the constant evolution of humanity. It initially takes place in our near future and spans in a timeline over the next billions of years. Starting off after the colonization and terraforming of Mars by humanity, and their separation into Earthlings and Martians. Though they coexisted for hundreds of years, varying tensions between the two groups eventually led to interplanetary war. This war escalated to a horrifying scale, with billions perishing and humanity as a whole almost going extinct. Upon realizing the errors of their ways, the sparse amount that remained changed everything to ensure something like this never happened again, altering their culture, economics, and even their own bodies. This new subspecies, called the Star People, were made to be much more intelligent and more suited to spacefaring travel. These more superior versions of humanity speedily took to the stars, and in a few generations colonized our entire solar system. Not satisfied with only inhabiting the solar system, they sent automated ships past the outskirts of humanity's starting place, equipped with the capability to terraform planets and create new civilizations using stored genetic material of the Star People. These new civilizations that didn't die out ended up spreading to even more stars and started a golden age for humanity. On a scale thought previously impossible, our species proliferated across the galaxy, numbers in the trillions. As they ventured, they had the revelation that they had never encountered other intelligent life in their journey across the universe, leaving them to wonder if they were truly alone. Following this questioning of their solitary existence, they found a world containing a peculiar situation. On it was an avian creature of sorts that did not seem to be related to the other wildlife native to the planet. Instead, it bared a heavy resemblance to an extinct dinosaur from Earth. Wondering how this thought to be extinct life form could have appeared so many light years away from Earth, left them to wonder, was it the work of a god or some race of aliens that had access to technology capable of this long before humans could even think? The induced terror at the thought of this led to an age of militarization. The Star People proceeded to build weapons capable of destruction past even a planetary scale, weapons capable of obliterating even stars, though they would find these numerous years of preparation to be utterly useless in the end. Humanity found themselves besieged by a godlike alien race named the Q. The Q were nomadic, traveling from galaxy to galaxy bent on carrying out their fanatical religious mission of remaking all life in the universe to match their vision. Accomplishing this through a form of genetic manipulation. Because of their outlook on this divine quest, they didn't view humans as people, but instead as objects which they could reshape into what they desired. Within 1,000 years of their first encounter with humanity, they had decimated our entire history and civilization with absolutely no regard to our individuality. The Q spent their time meticulously reforming the remnants of humanity into bizarre creations, changing us into tools, pets, entertainment, and wild animals. Satisfied with their finished works, the Q then left our spot in the universe and moved on to find new victims to exact their wishes upon. Fortunately for most of the new species that the Q shaped humanity into, they did not retain their consciousness, left to merely wander the accursed and treacherous worlds they were placed on. Though for some of them, the Q retained this consciousness, leaving them fully aware of their newfound hellish reality. One such race was the Mantal Opes. As they were created to be singers and historians for the Q, the Mantal Opes kept their human minds and thus were able to fully comprehend the world around them. However, being stuck inside the body of a grazing mammal, they were unable to do anything about their situation, instead wandering the plains singing mournful songs of their loss. Until mercifully, over the course of their evolution, their consciousness finally faded. In closing, the events of All Tomorrows portray a truly terrifying reality. A super advanced race of humans doing all they could against its alien attackers. In the end, all their centuries of preparation being meaningless against the enemy they could not fully comprehend. fated to be twisted into these new appalling forms, all traces of their previous civilization being lost. Coming to a close, these were some of my favorite representations of cosmic horror in media, each showing off what the subgenre does best in their own unique ways. Each terrifyingly disconcerting, they have piqued the interest of many before, and hopefully now you as well. I once again recommend you to experience all of these stories for yourself, as they are definitely worth your time. In conclusion, my name is TheoSpartic. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good night.